A lone police cruiser's headlights cut through the darkness as it sped down a remote country road, windshield wipers fighting against the pouring rain. Inside, Highway Patrol Officer Sarah Mitchell gripped the steering wheel with white knuckles, her face a mask of determination. Blood soaked her left sleeve where a bullet had torn through muscle, but her eyes never left the dirt road ahead. Through her rain-streaked windshield, the silhouette of a box truck came into view. Inside it, 5 women who would vanish forever if she failed. Sarah's dashboard camera recorded as she made an impossible decision, turning off her cruiser's lights and accelerating toward the property where armed men awaited. Sometimes protocol isn't enough to save lives, her voice narrated over the dashcam footage, moments before gunfire erupted in the darkness. 3 days later, the FBI director stood before a bank of microphones, footage from Sarah's dash and body cameras playing on screens behind him. "What you're witnessing," he told the assembled press, "is the most extraordinary act of courage I've seen in 30 years of law enforcement. By all reasonable assessment, what Officer Mitchell accomplished was impossible." Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from and what you think will happen next. And if you want more stories that touch the light within your heart, like this video, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell. Welcome to In the Heartlight. Let's begin. The morning light filtered through the windows of the Highway Patrol station as Officer Sarah Mitchell methodically inspected her cruiser. At 48, she moved with a deliberate precision that came from 20 years on the force. Her fingers traced the contours of the vehicle, checking lights, tires, and equipment with an attention to detail that younger officers often lacked. "Running the gauntlet again, Mitch," Officer Rodriguez called out as he passed by, coffee in hand. Sarah didn't look up. "Car's your lifeline out there. Treat it right, it treats you right." The younger officers called her the technician behind her back, sometimes with respect, sometimes with mild derision for what they saw as excessive caution. What they didn't understand was that Sarah's thoroughness wasn't about the regulations in the manual, it was about survival. Sarah's patrol territory covered 120 miles of highway, cutting through rural heartland. Out there, backup could be 30 minutes away on a good day. Her radio still had dead zones despite promises of improved coverage for years. Out there, attention to detail wasn't excessive, it was essential. Captain Reeves approached as Sarah finished her inspection. His expression suggested this wasn't a casual visit. "Mitchell, got a minute?" Sarah nodded, closing the cruiser's hood. "What's up, Captain?" Reeves glanced around before speaking. "Got the budget meeting yesterday. They're pushing for early retirement packages again." Sarah's jaw tightened. She knew what that meant. At 48, she was one of the oldest patrol officers still on active road duty. Most of her academy classmates had moved to desk jobs, training positions, or taken early retirement. "I fought for you last time," Reeves continued, his voice low. "But the brass wants younger faces out there. They're talking about modernizing the force." "My arrest record and safety stats are still top tier," Sarah replied evenly. "It's not about your performance," Reeves sighed. "Never has been. It's about numbers on spreadsheets and PR photos for the annual report." Sarah nodded, understanding the unspoken message. She needed to be indispensable, not just good, but irreplaceable, to survive the next round of cuts. "I appreciate the heads up," she said. As Reeves walked away, Sarah's hand unconsciously moved to the small scar at her temple, a souvenir from the incident 7 years ago that had changed everything. Before that night, she'd been by the book, following every protocol to the letter. After watching a family of 4 die because she'd waited for backup that arrived too late, something had shifted inside her. The official report had cleared her of wrongdoing. She'd followed procedure exactly. That was the problem. Since then, Sarah had developed what some called a sixth sense for trouble, an intuition that went beyond training. She could spot the nervous tick of a driver hiding more than a broken taillight, could differentiate between ordinary anxiety and the fear that suggested deeper trouble. This instinct had led to her uncovering 3 drug trafficking operations and stopping a kidnapping in progress over the past 5 years. But intuition wasn't a box you could check on department forms. It didn't translate to the metrics the higher-ups reviewed in budget meetings. Sarah climbed into her cruiser and adjusted her mirror. In the reflection, she saw the face of a woman the department increasingly viewed as a relic. Experienced in an era that valued youth, cautious in a culture that rewarded quick results, methodical when speed was celebrated. Unit 17, dispatch. Her radio crackled. Unit 17, go ahead, Sarah responded. Reports of debris on Highway 43, mile marker 78. Please respond. Copy that. En route. Sarah pulled out of the station, unaware that this ordinary Friday would soon test everything she'd learned in 20 years of service, and that before the night was over, her name would reach the desk of the FBI director himself. The call about road debris turned out to be nothing more than a fallen branch, easily cleared. Sarah had just logged the incident when the first drops of rain began to speckle her windshield. Perfect. A rainy Friday evening meant increased accident risks and the promise of a busy shift. She pulled into a familiar monitoring spot, partially concealed by overgrown bushes on a slight rise overlooking a long stretch of Highway 43. From here, she could observe traffic patterns while remaining relatively hidden from speeding motorists. The rain intensified, falling in thick sheets that transformed the asphalt into a dark mirror reflecting headlights. Sarah was just considering moving to a different location when her radar pinged. A vehicle approaching at 67 miles per hour, just over the 65 limit, but still technically speeding. Not worth pulling someone over in this downpour for 2 miles per hour, especially with visibility deteriorating. As the car passed, Sarah noticed the passenger side taillight was out. That was different. A legitimate safety concern on a night like this. She pulled onto the highway, activating her lights after catching up to the vehicle. A dark blue sedan, maybe 5 years old, Massachusetts plates. The sedan didn't respond immediately, continuing for nearly half a mile before finally pulling to the shoulder. Sarah noted the delay in her mental log of the interaction. Could be nothing. Music too loud, driver distracted, or it could be something. Unit 17, conducting traffic stop on dark blue Toyota Camry, Massachusetts plate, Victor Echo Charlie 396, Highway 43 eastbound, mile marker 85, she radioed in. Copy Unit 17, dispatch responded. Status check-in 10. Sarah approached the vehicle following standard procedure, flashlight in her left hand, right hand near her holster. The rain pounded against her uniform, her hat providing minimal protection against the downpour. Through the rear window, she could make out 2 occupants, driver and front passenger. The driver's window lowered slowly. "Evening, officer," the man said, offering a practiced smile that didn't quite match the tightness around his eyes. Mid-30s, clean-cut, business casual clothing. "Was I speeding?" "Your passenger side taillight is out, sir. License, registration, and insurance, please." Of course. He reached smoothly for the glove compartment. As he did, Sarah's attention shifted momentarily to the passenger, a young woman, perhaps early 20s, staring straight ahead. Something about her stillness set off warning bells in Sarah's mind. Not the normal anxiety of a traffic stop, but something else. The woman's hands were folded in her lap, unnaturally still, and when the dome light had briefly illuminated the interior, Sarah had caught a glimpse of what looked like bruising on her wrist. "Here you go, officer," the driver said, handing over perfectly organized documents. Too perfect, actually. License, registration, and insurance card all placed in order, as if he'd prepared them before being pulled over. Sarah studied the license. "Mr. Lawrence Peterson? That's right." Another smile that didn't reach his eyes. "And where are you headed tonight, Mr. Peterson?" "Just up to Burlington. Family visit." Sarah glanced at the passenger again. "And your friend here?" The woman still hadn't turned, hadn't acknowledged Sarah's presence at all. "My cousin, Peterson answered quickly. Angela, she's shy around authority figures. He gave a small laugh. Can't blame her these days, right? Sarah directed her flashlight briefly toward the passenger. Ma'am, everything all right tonight? The woman finally turned, offering a tight smile and a small nod, but no verbal response. Her eyes told a different story. Something hollow and afraid lived in them. I'll just run these and be right back, Sarah said, returning to her cruiser. The documents checked out perfectly. Lawrence Peterson, 36, clean record, not even a parking ticket, vehicle registered in his name, insurance up to date. The system gave her nothing to justify holding them longer. Unit 17 status? Her radio inquired. Unit 17 all clear. Routine stop. And by all official measures, it was routine. But as Sarah sat watching the rain streak down her windshield, that familiar sensation crawled up her spine, the one that had saved lives before. Something wasn't right. Protocol said to issue a warning for the taillight, send them on their way, and continue patrol. The department's newly implemented efficiency metrics pushed officers to minimize time spent on minor infractions. Captain Reeves's words echoed in her mind. She needed to be a team player if she wanted to avoid the retirement package. Sarah looked again at the sedan. Through the rain-distorted rear window, she could see the driver talking, gesturing with one hand. The passenger remained motionless. Sarah had a choice to make: follow procedure or follow instinct. She thought of the family she'd lost 7 years ago when she'd chosen procedure. Taking a deep breath, she stepped back into the rain. Sarah approached the driver's side window again, rainwater streaming down her face despite her hat. Mr. Peterson, I'm going to need both you and your passenger to step out of the vehicle, please. Peterson's practiced smile faltered. Officer, is that really necessary? It's pouring rain and we're already running late. It is necessary, sir. Please step out of the vehicle. As Peterson reluctantly opened his door, Sarah positioned herself strategically, maintaining clear sightlines to both occupants. Years of experience had taught her that traffic stops could escalate in seconds. What seems to be the problem, officer? Peterson asked, standing in the rain, his business casual attire quickly becoming soaked. I'd like to speak with your passenger separately, Sarah replied, keeping her tone professional but firm. Peterson's jaw tightened. I don't understand what this is about. We've done nothing wrong. This is a standard safety procedure, sir. It wasn't, but Sarah needed separation to assess the situation properly. Please wait by the front of your vehicle. Sarah approached the passenger side, opening the door herself, when the woman made no move to exit. Ma'am, could you step out, please? Up close, the bruising on the woman's wrist was unmistakable finger marks. The young woman finally complied, moving with a stiffness that suggested additional injuries. My name is Officer Mitchell, Sarah said softly, positioning herself between the woman and Peterson. What's your name? The woman glanced toward Peterson, who was watching them intently despite the rain. Angela, she whispered, barely audible above the storm. Angela what? Another glance toward Peterson. Angela Rodriguez. Angela, are you related to Mr. Peterson? With a barely perceptible hesitation, she said. No, I just met him yesterday. He offered me a ride to Burlington for a job interview. Sarah nodded, noting the inconsistency with Peterson's earlier statement. I'd like you to wait in my patrol car while I finish speaking with Mr. Peterson. You're not in trouble. Sarah escorted Angela to her cruiser, opening the rear door for her. Once the woman was inside, Sarah returned to Peterson, who was now visibly agitated. Sir, there seem to be some inconsistencies in your stories. You told me the young woman was your cousin, but she says... This is ridiculous, Peterson interrupted. We've done nothing wrong. I know my rights. Sir, I'm conducting a safety check due to observed injuries on your passenger. She's clumsy, fell down some stairs yesterday, Peterson said quickly. Look, I don't mean to be difficult, but we really need to get going. Sarah's radio crackled. Unit 17, status update? Unit 17, still conducting investigation at traffic stop. Mile marker 85, Sarah responded. Copy Unit 17. Be advised, shift supervisor requesting you clear minor stops quickly due to accident reported on Highway 16. All units needed. Sarah felt the pressure building. Protocol dictated she should wrap this up quickly, especially with the dispatcher's not-so-subtle hint about the shift supervisor's expectations. But something still felt wrong. "Mr. Peterson, I'd like your consent to search your vehicle." "Absolutely not." Peterson's demeanor shifted instantly. "I do not consent to any searches. If you don't have probable cause, we're leaving right now." He was right about the law, and he knew it. Without clear probable cause or consent, Sarah's options were limited. She could call for a K-9 unit, but that would take time they apparently didn't have with the accident on Highway 16. "Wait here," Sarah said firmly, returning to her cruiser. Inside, she found Angela staring straight ahead, seemingly lost in thought. "Angela," Sarah began gently, turning to face the young woman from the front seat. "I need you to tell me the truth. Are you in any danger? Is Mr. Peterson forcing you to go somewhere against your will?" The woman's eyes filled with tears, but she remained silent. "I can help you, but only if you tell me what's happening," Sarah continued. Angela's gaze darted to the sedan where Peterson watched them, then back to Sarah. "I can't," she whispered. "He'll kill my sister." Sarah felt her heart rate quicken. "Your sister? He has people watching her. If I don't cooperate..." Angela trailed off. "Angela, are there others? Other women?" The young woman nodded almost imperceptibly. "3 more. In a house. We're supposed to be moved tonight. Human trafficking." The pieces suddenly clicked into place, the bruises, the nervous behavior, the inconsistent stories. Sarah's radio crackled again. "Unit 17, supervisor requesting update. Multiple units needed for accident scene." Sarah made a decision. "Unit 17, completing traffic stop now, will be en route shortly." She faced Angela again. "I need you to trust me. I'm going to let you go back to the car with him, but I'm going to follow you. I won't let anything happen to you or your sister." Fear flashed across Angela's face. "You don't understand. He has connections. They always know when police are following." "Not this time," Sarah promised. "I need you to act normal. Can you do that?" After a moment, Angela nodded. Sarah walked Angela back to the sedan and addressed Peterson. "Sir, I apologize for the delay. Your taillight needs to be fixed as soon as possible. This is a written warning." She handed him a slip of paper. "You're free to go." Relief washed over Peterson's face. "Thank you, officer. We'll get that fixed right away." As they pulled away, Sarah returned to her cruiser and waited 30 seconds before following, headlights off despite the rain. She kept the sedan in sight but maintained significant distance. "Unit 17, what's your ETA to Highway 16?" dispatch inquired. Sarah made another decision that could cost her job. "Unit 17, investigating possible human trafficking situation," she reported, "requesting silent backup to my location." "Unit 17, verify human trafficking, shift supervisor requesting all units to accident scene." "Affirmative," Sarah responded firmly. "Subject vehicle traveling east on Highway 43, now turning north onto County Road 7. A new voice came over the radio. "Captain Reeves." "Unit 17, this is Captain Reeves. What evidence do you have for suspected trafficking?" "Female passenger with visible injuries, inconsistent stories, and direct statement indicating trafficking of multiple victims," Sarah replied crisply. A pause then. "Unit 17, maintain visual contact, but do not engage. Backup is at least 25 minutes out due to the Highway 16 situation." County Road 7 was a winding rural route that led away from town toward more isolated properties. As Peterson's sedan turned onto a smaller gravel road, Sarah pulled over, killing her lights completely. This area was notorious for its lack of cell service and radio dead zones. If she continued following too closely, she'd be spotted easily on the narrow road. Sarah quickly pulled out her department-issued tablet and pulled up the county property records, searching for the area where the sedan was heading. 3 properties existed on that road: an abandoned farm, a seasonal hunting cabin, and a foreclosed residence that had been vacant for months. or supposedly vacant. Sarah typed a quick message to dispatch with the exact coordinates and property details before the radio cut out completely as she entered the dead zone. She was now completely alone, with no way to communicate with her department. She had two options: wait for backup that might or might not find her in time, or proceed alone into an unknown situation involving potentially armed traffickers and multiple victims. The memory of that night 7 years ago flashed through her mind. The family she couldn't save because she'd waited for backup that arrived too late. Reaching under her seat, Sarah retrieved her tactical flashlight and checked her sidearm. "Not this time," she whispered to herself, pulling back onto the road. The gravel crunched beneath her tires as she drove without headlights, guided only by the ambient light filtering through the rain clouds. After about half a mile, she spotted a faint glow through the trees, lights from a building that was supposed to be empty. Sarah parked her cruiser in a small turnout, concealed by overgrown bushes. The rain had finally begun to let up, but the ground was saturated, mud pulling at her boots as she made her way through the woods toward the property. As she approached, Sarah could make out Peterson's sedan parked alongside two other vehicles, a van with out-of-state plates and a black SUV. The foreclosed house was a single-story ranch style, its windows covered from the inside. Sarah circled carefully, staying within the tree line, looking for the best approach. Through a gap in one window covering, she could see into what appeared to be a living room. Her heart sank as she counted 5 young women, including Angela, seated on the floor. 2 armed men moved about the room, while Peterson conversed with a third man near the kitchen. Sarah reached for her radio by instinct, then remembered it was useless here. She was completely on her own, outgunned and outnumbered, with no way to call for help. Yet inside that house were 5 women who would soon be gone if she didn't act. As she weighed her options, a new vehicle approached, headlights illuminating the rural property as it pulled into the driveway. A large box truck with rental markings. The transport vehicle, Sarah realized. Once those women were loaded into that truck, finding them again would be nearly impossible. Sarah thought of her training, of protocols, of the department's emphasis on officer safety above all else. Then she thought of Angela's words, "He'll kill my sister." Sometimes the rulebook had to be set aside. Drawing her weapon, Sarah Mitchell prepared to do the impossible. The box truck's engine cut off, plunging the property into relative quiet, broken only by the soft patter of diminishing rain. Sarah crouched at the edge of the woods, analyzing the scene with the tactical precision that had once earned her commendations in the department's special response training. 4 armed men, now visible. 5 victims. 3 vehicles plus the newly arrived truck. The foreclosed house had 2 visible entrances. The front door currently being used, and likely a back door through the kitchen. Most of the interior lights were concentrated in the front room, suggesting the rest of the house might be vacant or unused. Sarah's dashcam was still recording, automatically uploading footage whenever her cruiser had signal. Even if something happened to her, there would be evidence of the sedan and her pursuit. But the camera couldn't see her current position, couldn't document what was unfolding at the house. Sarah unclipped the small body camera from her uniform and positioned it carefully on a tree branch, angled toward the property. It wouldn't transmit without signal, but it would record. Either way, there would be evidence. 2 men exited the box truck, the driver and a heavy-set man who appeared to be giving orders. They entered the house, bringing the total to 6 potential hostiles. The odds were getting worse. Inside, through the gaps in the window coverings, Sarah could see the women being lined up. One was handed a roll of duct tape. They were preparing to move. It was now or never. Sarah took a deep breath, recalling her advanced tactical training. In situations with multiple hostiles and victims, creating confusion was essential. She needed a diversion. Circling to the rear of the property, Sarah located what she'd been hoping for, a propane tank connected to the house for heating. Beside it, a stack of firewood and what appeared to be lawn care equipment covered by a tarp. Moving quickly but silently, Sarah repositioned her cruiser, backing it into position down the access road, hidden but ready for rapid departure. Returning to the propane tank, she grabbed a gas can from the lawn equipment and emptied a small amount at a safe distance from the tank, creating a controlled fire line that would burn bright but not immediately threaten the structure or tank. As a final preparation, she removed the slim tactical strobe light from her belt, equipment that wasn't standard issue but that she'd personally purchased years ago. The high-intensity LED strobes were disorienting in dark conditions, creating momentary blindness and confusion. Sarah checked her weapon one last time, then lit the fire line with a match from her emergency kit. The gas ignited immediately, creating a bright flare of light at the rear of the property. Seconds later, she heard shouting from inside the house. Two men burst through the back door, weapons drawn but momentarily confused by the fire. Sarah positioned herself behind a large oak tree and activated her strobe, aiming it directly at them. The pulsing, blinding light had the intended effect. Both men raised their hands to shield their eyes, disoriented. "Police, drop your weapons," Sarah commanded, her voice carrying the authority of 20 years of service. In their confusion, one man complied immediately, dropping his gun. The other turned to fire blindly toward her voice. Sarah was ready, firing twice and hitting him in the shoulder and leg. He went down, screaming. The commotion drew two more men to the back door, but they were more cautious, using the doorframe as cover. Sarah needed to maintain the initiative. She tossed the still strobing tactical light to her left, drawing their attention and fire. As they focused on the light, she circled right, using the darkness and her knowledge of their fixation point to her advantage. "Police, the house is surrounded," she shouted from her new position, with creating the illusion of multiple officers. Inside, she could hear more shouting, the sounds of confusion and panic. Her diversion was working, creating the impression of a coordinated police response rather than a single officer. Then she heard a sound that chilled her, a woman's scream, followed by, "They're taking us out front." They were moving the victims to the truck. Sarah had to act immediately. Rushing the back entrance, she fired twice more at the doorframe, forcing the men there to duck for cover. Then she was through the back door, sweeping the kitchen with her weapon, finding it empty, as the men had moved toward the front of the house. Sarah could see through to the living room, where Peterson and the heavy-set man were hurriedly pushing three women toward the front door. Two other armed men provided cover. Angela and another victim were already outside, being forced toward the box truck. Without hesitation, Sarah fired at the light fixture, plunging the room into darkness. In the sudden blackness, she dropped to one knee, making herself a smaller target against the silhouettes now visible against the front windows. "Police, down on the ground now!" Two of the men turned and fired wildly toward her voice, their muzzle flashes briefly illuminating their positions. Sarah returned fire with precision, her shots finding one man in the chest. He dropped immediately. The other ducked behind a couch. Peterson was shouting, "Get them in the truck, now!" Sarah needed to reach the women being taken outside. She moved laterally through the darkness, using furniture as cover, making her way toward the front entrance. One of the armed men spotted her movement and raised his weapon, but she was faster, firing twice and hitting him center mass. As she reached the front door, Sarah caught a glimpse of the scene outside. Angela and the other woman being forced into the box truck by the driver, while Peterson and the heavy-set man provided cover. Without warning, a searing pain exploded in Sarah's left arm as a bullet found her from behind. The man who had been hiding behind the couch had flanked her. Gritting her teeth against the pain, Sarah spun and fired, hitting him in the thigh. He fell, his weapon clattering to the floor. Sarah kicked his gun away and moved to the doorway, blood now soaking her uniform sleeve. Outside, Peterson spotted her and raised his weapon. "It's over," Sarah shouted, taking careful aim despite her injury. "Drop your weapons." The heavy-set man made a break for the driver's side of the truck. Sarah had to make a split-second decision: stop him or keep Peterson covered. She chose to fire at the truck's front tire, the shot connecting with a loud pop as the tire deflated. The heavy-set man changed direction, running toward the SUV instead. Peterson, seeing his partner abandoning him, made a desperate move. He grabbed Angela, who had only partially entered the truck, and pulled her in front of him as a human shield. "Back off or she dies," he shouted, pressing his pistol to Angela's temple. Sarah held her position, weapon trained on Peterson's exposed shoulder, the only target she could see that wouldn't endanger Angela. The pain in her arm was intensifying, but she forced herself to remain steady. "There's nowhere to go, Peterson," Sarah called, keeping her voice calm despite the adrenaline coursing through her system. "Your friends are down, the truck isn't moving, backup will be here any minute." It was a bluff. Backup was still likely 15 minutes away at best, but Peterson couldn't know that. "I'll kill her," Peterson shouted, his voice cracking with desperation. "Then what?" Sarah responded. "You'll have a dead hostage and nowhere to run. Is that worth spending the rest of your life on death row?" Sarah could see Angela's eyes, wide with terror, but also something else: determination. Without warning, Angela suddenly went limp, dropping her weight and slipping partially out of Peterson's grip. It was only a momentary advantage, but it was enough. Sarah fired once, the shot hitting Peterson's exposed shoulder with precision. He screamed in pain, his grip on Angela loosening further. As he instinctively raised his hand to his wounded shoulder, Sarah rushed forward, closing the distance between them. Peterson tried to bring his weapon back into play, but Sarah was already on him, delivering a powerful strike to his wrist that sent the gun flying. A second blow to his wounded shoulder dropped him to his knees, howling in pain. "Don't move," Sarah ordered, keeping her weapon trained on him as she quickly surveyed the scene. The heavy-set man had reached the SUV and was attempting to start it. Sarah raised her weapon to fire at the vehicle's tires, but before she could, the night erupted with flashing lights and sirens as 3 patrol cars roared up the driveway, their spotlights illuminating the entire property. "Police! Freeze!" Multiple voices commanded as officers spilled from the vehicles, weapons drawn. The heavy-set man raised his hands, recognizing the futility of further resistance. Sarah nearly collapsed with relief at the sight of backup, the adrenaline that had kept her going beginning to ebb as the reality of her wound made itself known. She secured Peterson with handcuffs despite her injured arm, then turned to Angela. "You're safe now," she said, her voice rough with exhaustion. Angela nodded, tears streaming down her face. "My sister?" "We'll find her," Sarah promised. "We've got their phones, their vehicles. We'll find everyone." Captain Reeves was suddenly at her side, his expression a mixture of concern and disbelief as he took in the scene: the handcuffed Peterson, the multiple downed suspects inside the house, and the 5 rescued women huddled together under an officer's care. "Mitchell, what the hell happened here?" he demanded, then noticed her blood-soaked sleeve. "Medic. We need a medic here now." Sarah leaned against the box truck, suddenly lightheaded. "Followed my gut, sir," she managed to reply. Reeves shook his head in amazement. "Your gut just broke up what looks like a major trafficking operation. How did you, by yourself?" He gestured at the chaos around them. Sarah's vision was beginning to tunnel, but she forced herself to remain upright. "Dashcam has the initial stop. Body camera's on a tree over there. Got most of it." "Mitchell, you need to sit down before you fall down," Reeves ordered, guiding her to the ground. "Medics are 2 minutes out." As Sarah finally yielded to her captain's order, allowing herself to slide down to a sitting position, Angela broke away from the officer who was attending to her and came to kneel beside Sarah. "You believed me," she said simply, "when no one else would have." Sarah nodded, fighting to stay conscious as shock began to set in. "Always trust your gut," she murmured, The heart knows things the eyes can't see. The last thing Sarah saw before the medics arrived was the 5 women she'd rescued, huddled together but alive, free from a fate that would have been sealed if she'd followed protocol instead of instinct. As darkness closed in, Sarah heard Captain Reeves on his radio. "Dispatch. Inform the state director we're going to need FBI involvement. Officer Mitchell just single-handedly broke up what appears to be a major interstate trafficking operation." Sarah's last thought before losing consciousness was that she might not need to worry about that early retirement package after all. Sarah woke in a hospital room, her left arm throbbing from the bullet wound. Captain Reeves sat beside her bed. "The women?" Sarah asked immediately, her voice raspy. "All safe," Reeves assured her. "Angela's sister was located at a different site. FBI coordinated that rescue hours ago." "Peterson and the others?" "4 in custody, 2 in surgery. The heavy-set man is Raymond Torres, FBI most wanted for trafficking operations across 3 states. Sarah nodded, relieved. "Guessing there's paperwork waiting." Reeves actually smiled. "Paperwork is the least of your concerns. The state police director called twice. The FBI director requested your dash cam and body camera footage. The governor's office is talking commendation. I was just doing my job." "No," Reeves shook his head firmly. 5 victims rescued, major interstate operation dismantled, FBI most wanted in custody, all because you trusted instincts over protocol. The FBI director called what you did impossible." A suited man entered after the nurse checked Sarah's vitals. "Officer Mitchell, I'm Special Agent Thomas Ramirez, FBI Human Trafficking Task Force." After brief questioning about her decisions during the traffic stop, Ramirez concluded, "Your actions gave us the break we've been looking for. Torres has run this network for 5 years. We're already making arrests along the eastern seaboard." He stood to leave. "The FBI director sends his personal regards. The Bureau doesn't use terms like impossible lightly." When they were alone, Reeves cleared his throat. "About those early retirement packages." "I understand," Sarah interrupted. "Department needs younger officers." "That's not it," Reeves said. "The commissioner has authorized a new unit focused on trafficking interdiction. He wants you to lead it." Sarah blinked in surprise. "Me? You've been saying for years we need to trust gut instinct alongside procedure. Yesterday proved your point rather definitively." Later, Angela visited briefly. "They found my sister," she said, emotion breaking her voice. "Because of you." "I'm glad," Sarah replied simply. "Why would you risk your life like that for strangers?" Sarah thought of the family she couldn't save years ago. "Because every life matters. Sometimes following rules means people fall through cracks. I couldn't let that happen. Not again." 3 days later, Sarah stood in dress uniform at the state capitol as the FBI director addressed the crowd. Officer Mitchell's actions exemplify the highest traditions of law enforcement. What she accomplished was, by any reasonable assessment, impossible. The governor presented Sarah with the Medal of Valor. Officer Mitchell reminds us that behind the badge is a human being with instincts that no procedure manual can capture. 1 month later, Sarah stood before officers in a training facility, her arm still in a sling. "Protocol exists for a reason," she began. "But between the lines of every procedure manual is an unwritten rule. Trust your instincts. Today we're going to learn how to balance both." On her desk sat a framed letter from the FBI director. The impossible becomes possible when instinct and courage meet opportunity. Beside it was a photo of Angela and her sister, now reunited, with a card reading simply, "Because you followed your heart." 3 months after the rescue, the landscape of Sarah Mitchell's life had transformed completely. The trafficking interdiction unit she now led had already disrupted 2 more trafficking operations based on the intelligence gathered from the Peterson case. Sarah's desk, once cluttered with retirement paperwork, now held case files and training materials. The department that had once viewed her as outdated now regularly sent officers to learn her methods of balancing protocol with intuition. On a clear Tuesday morning, Sarah stood in the parking lot of the State Police Academy, watching as Angela walked confidently toward the entrance, application packet in hand. "Nervous?" Sarah asked as the young woman approached. "Terrified," Angela admitted with a small smile, "but ready." After the rescue, Angela had channeled her trauma into purpose, becoming an advocate for trafficking survivors and eventually deciding to pursue a career in law enforcement. "The academy's tough," Sarah warned. "So am I," Angela replied. "You taught me that." They walked together toward the entrance, where Captain Reeves waited to greet them. "Mitchell, the new tactical training simulator is ready," he said. "We've programmed it with scenarios based on your traffic stop. Every cadet will now train on recognizing the subtle signs you spotted." Sarah nodded, a quiet satisfaction filling her. What had nearly ended her career had instead changed police training across the state. The Mitchell Protocol, as the cadets had unofficially named it, was now required learning, emphasizing that intuition was as valuable a tool as any piece of equipment on an officer's belt. Later that day, Sarah received a call from FBI agent Ramirez. "Torres is talking," he said without preamble. "The network was bigger than we thought. His information has already led to 17 more arrests and the rescue of 32 victims." "Good," Sarah said simply. "You know," Ramirez continued, "before your traffic stop, we were looking in completely wrong directions. One officer following her gut accomplished what task forces couldn't in years." That evening, Sarah drove past the stretch of Highway 43 where it had all begun. The spot looked ordinary, just asphalt, guardrails, and the fading light of sunset. Nothing to suggest it had been the site of a decision that saved dozens of lives. Her phone buzzed with a text message from Rodriguez. "Suspect acting hinky on traffic stop. Something feels off, requesting you as backup before proceeding." Sarah smiled. The younger officers were learning to trust their instincts, but also to know when to ask for help. That balance might be her most important legacy. As she turned her cruiser around to head toward Rodriguez's location, Sarah caught a glimpse of her reflection in the rearview mirror. The woman the department had once considered past her prime now saw something different in her own eyes. Not just experience, but purpose. Some would still call what she had done impossible. Sarah knew better. The impossible was often just the improbable, waiting for someone willing to trust their heart over their handbook. Love this story? Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more incredible tales of courage and intuition. In the Heartlight brings you stories that remind us how ordinary people find extraordinary courage when it matters most. Don't forget to check out the video currently on your screen. You won't want to miss it. See you in the next one.